Emma, I can see you on screen. Can you hear us okay?
Yes,
can you,
certainly, yeah.
And we can hear you. That's great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make a start then. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Policy and Resources Committee, which has been conducted from the Council Chamber and through Microsoft Teams. Before we begin, I will ask Councillor Kenny MacLeod to lead us in prayer. Councillor MacLeod.
Our eternal and gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we come into your presence now this afternoon with thanksgiving in our hearts for your goodness to us, for the many ways in which you bless us and provide for us each day. And as we come knowing that you are the only one to whom we can come, for you are the one who is the creator and sustainer of all things, the one who brought everything into being by the word of your power. And Lord, as we come to now consider the matters ahead of us this afternoon, we thank you for bringing us here together, for the honour you have given each and every one of us to be here to look at these issues and challenges that we have, the resources that are in front of us that you have given us to allocate and to use as a council for the good of our community. And we pray that you would give us the wisdom and the guidance as we consider these various matters, that we would consider and listen to each and every viewpoint with sensitivity and with understanding, and that the decisions we come to would be the right decisions for our community, that we would make best use of all that you have given us to the benefit of all the people of the Western Isles. For you have given us the responsibility to be those decision makers, and as we do so, we pray that we would keep our eyes fixed on you, on the good of each and every one, for there are so many in our communities that are in need. And Lord, as we struggle to know what to do with so little resources in so many ways, help us to use them wisely and use them properly, that each and every one will benefit. We thank you for Malcolm and the officers of the council for all the work that they've done in preparing the reports and in delivering the work that we as members agree and require them to be done. Thank you for all that is done, and pray that you bless each and every one. Be with us as members and guide us now. Go before us in everything we do and keep us focused on you, that everything will be done to your glory and in your honour. And all we ask is in Jesus' loving and precious name. Amen.
Thank you very much. So could members please ensure your microphones are muted on both your Teams device and your mobile device if you're listening to the translation. And if you wish to speak, only unmute your Teams device. The meeting will be recorded and will be available on the Coroner's website following the meeting. Items 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 and 32 will be considered in private at the end of the meeting. And I'm ruling items 6, 9, 27 and 28 as urgent to allow matters to be considered prior to the next meeting of the Coroner. Tribute, Ms. Emma McSween. Before we begin the meeting, on behalf of the committee, I would like to congratulate Ms. McSween on her appointment as Interim Chief Officer of the Western Isles Integration Joint Board. Congratulations, Emma.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on to the agenda proper, and the first item is the minute of meeting of 24th September 2025, and that's for approval. Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 2, declaration of interest. As usual, you're invited to declare an interest in any agenda item at this point. If you become aware of an interest during the meeting, then I would ask you to declare it at that time. I don't see any lights on or hands up online, so I'm assuming we can move on to item 3, which is the minute of the meeting of the Single Authority Model Member Reference Group of 24th October 2025, and that's for noting. Agreed. Thank you. Item 4 is the minute of the meeting of the Local Government Employee Joint Consultative Committee of 6th November 2025, and again that's for noting. Agreed. Thank you. Item 5, minute of the meeting of the Budget and Strategy Board of 11th November 2025 for noting. Agreed. Item 6 is the minute of the meeting of the Social Work and Social Care Board of 18th November 2025, and that is for noting but also approval of the recommendations at items 3 and 4. Agree, we approve that. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Item 7 is the minute of the meeting of the Community Safety Board of 19th November 2025, and this item has been withdrawn due to the meeting not going ahead. Item 8 is the minute of the meeting of the Human Resources Subcommittee of 20th November 2025, and that's for approval of the recommendations in the minute. Do we agree with the recommendations? Agreed, thank you. Item 9 is the minute of the meeting of Comhairle and Gaelic on the 24th of November 2025, and again that's for noting and approval of the recommendations at items 3 and 4. Okay, we have agreement for that as well. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to performance monitoring. Item 10 is the outcome delivery reports, and the first item we have is the Chief Executive's Department, so I'll ask Mr. Budd if he would like to speak to the item. Mr. Budd.
Thank you very much, Chair. I won't go through this lengthy report in detail, but as ever, I'd like to highlight some key points. First of all, just to note, strategic risks that cover more than one service are allocated through this report to the Chief Executive's service. So that explains why you might be wondering why some of these items are in my report when they're on the agenda of Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. That's why, because they're cross-service. Turning to paragraph 6 on risk management, 15 strategic threats. Always glad to know there's only 15. The 4 risks remaining as high, though, are set out there, and I think these are fairly obvious to you all. Income streams, not achieving budget savings, social care, which will be on every risk register across Scotland, and failure to adapt to the effects of climate change. I'll move on to paragraph 7, which is probably the longest paragraph on this agenda. Quite a lot on it. Apologies for the error at 7.4 there. A new National Islands Plan was indeed published at the end of October, and it's still being analysed. It's a lengthy document, and it contains a reduced number of commitments. That's the word that was missing there for some reason. Updates there on RCGF, on the Islands Growth Deal. I won't go through these, but just note at 7.8, 4 full business cases for the deal currently in development. That would deliver more than £13 million into the island's economy in the coming year, on top of the 15 million already approved. So these are not insubstantial sums. Reference to Crown Estate grants, we will have to discuss the allocation of next year's figure, of course, as part of our budget deliberations, and that will come back to Budget and Strategy Board in the usual way. Moving on to 7.12, reference there to Shared Prosperity Fund. There are so many funds around at the moment, you may be getting a little confused. Shared Prosperity Fund is likely to be replaced by Local Growth Fund. That will have a capital bias. There's also an awful lot of capital-heavy funding going around at the moment, which we welcome, but revenue is also important. And as I've said on many occasions, and I won't reiterate in detail here, SPF supports a number of key posts in employability, in financial inclusion, and I think we will have to look very carefully as to whether we continue these posts, and I'm sure we will wish to do that, but from what source? So just we don't know what Local Growth Fund will be. All we know is that Shared Prosperity Fund ends in March 2026. The leader and I had a meeting with the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Scotland, Kirsty McNeill, last week, and covered all of these points, and we've asked our Member of Parliament to take these issues up as they affect the Western Isles in particular, which he is happy to do. So more on that, I think, possibly as early as the next report to Budget and Strategy Board. Paragraphs 7 to 15 onwards relate to transport. Many of these matters have been covered very adequately at Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, so I'll just leave them for information at the moment. Scottish Affairs Committee, subsequent to the writing of this report, has published an inquiry into fixed links. It's a very exploratory call for evidence, so a draft response to that is being prepared and will be circulated to members before that is submitted. I think that has to be submitted on the 5th of December, which is, of course, next week. We haven't, as a council, taken a formal policy position on fixed links, so the response will be interested, but guarded, of course, as to any commitments, because these have to be made in this chamber, and you know my view that these would require an element of community, quite focused community consultation in each of the communities of the Western Isles. I'll glide over 721 and 722 on anti-poverty measures, not because they're not critically important, but because the information is all entirely set out there. Good to see our local child poverty action report that's been incorporated in the anti-poverty strategy. That will align with the Scottish Government anti-child poverty delivery plan, and that will influence the new local outcome improvement plan. You might think, so what? All these plans, but that is how funding comes through in this vitally important area. Moving on to public service reform, I think you've heard enough from me on public service reform generally, so that's from paragraph 729 onwards, but it is reaching an important point. There will be a special meeting of this committee and the Corla in the middle of next month to look at our formal response, which government requires to be submitted by the 31st of December. And thank you, Chair, for agreeing to that meeting. But that discussions ongoing at a very high level in Scottish Government and with NHS Scotland and with NHS Western Isles. So it's best that these conclude before the committee is asked to approve options. You'll be relieved to know that's nearly at the end. Looking at the finances, I usually just say everything's balancing. There's a negative variance in law and governance. That's just due to the increase in members' allowances, which hasn't been transferred for this year. That will be mainstreamed from next year, and we'll take care of that probably from reserves or any savings in the department's budget. So that's my report. Chair, happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Murray.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Chief Executive. You mentioned the maybe confusion around all these funding streams. I did make a note while I was reading through this and wondered if it would be feasible to have a wee chart with all these on it, so for ease of reference, so we know, you know, how much is involved, where they're coming from, and what our asks are of each of these funds. Just a thought on that. And the other one I wondered about under, I don't know if it's the right place to raise it, under equity, equality, sorry, in 7.28, and I suppose moving into the next one too. And we're going to see some of these policies in front of us, internal policies later today. I recently attended a meeting of the Elect Her group, which looks at trying to increase female representation. And I know this refers to equality of opportunity in the workforce. I would hope that between now and the elections in 2027, women in the Western Isles can be encouraged to put their names forward to the council electoral proceedings, and obviously it's up to the electorate to decide whether they want to vote for women. But it would be nice to think we would have a larger representation next time round. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I think both those points are doable and certainly would be useful for us and for the wider community. So the funding structural chart, it'd be nice to be infographic for us to have, and that can be pulled together.
Yes, Chair, that's actually anticipated. We've anticipated that need, not least for ourselves, because there are so many funding pots coming through. So that will be produced for everyone's guidance, both with the timescales for these funds, conditions as far as we're aware, and how they're administered. So I think that will be helpful for everyone. As to Elect Her, we continue to engage very strongly with Elect Her for perhaps obvious reasons. It will be for my successor, I think, to deal with that in the year before the next local government election in May 2027. But suffice to say, we are on that case and conscious too of the large numbers of female elected representatives, both in the parliaments and in council chambers, who are discouraged from standing, largely because of online abuse and the like. So I hope that's not really a feature of life here, thankfully. So hopefully that we will be able to encourage candidates forward to represent the community as far as that's possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And without putting pressure on you, Councillor Murray, I think your experience has been in this chamber, which has been very male dominated. If that could be used to and reflected in any publication, any work that we do, that would be really appreciated. Are there any other questions on the report? I don't see any hands online or lights on. In which case, I'll move on to the next report, which is the Strategic Finance Outcome Delivery Report, and I'll hand over to Mr. Gomez for that one.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is just our report for the half year. Just to note really that at 7.2, the rollout of our digital telecare service received the recognition by way of a gold level 2 implementation award back in August. And this programme is on track to complete ahead of schedule. 7.4 just details the works on the accounts. So the 23-24 accounts were approved at the last series, and work begins on the audit of the 24-25 accounts. This is late, obviously. So this is going to have a bit of an impact with regards to pressure on staff, given that we're coming into budget time as well. We will manage that accordingly. 8.1, just showing that budgets are on track for our section, and workforce planning. I hope to undertake a review here and report it at a later date, but happy to take any questions on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions on this report? What's any likes? Any comments? Are we going to find the chief executive? Is it £10 the standard? Yeah,
Maybe 20.
we'll put it into the reserves. Okay, thanks very much. And also just I'm glad you highlighted 7.2 and the award that's coming forward. You know, it's really useful. It's really good, I think, for us to be recognising when we are doing good pieces of work. So thanks for that. We'll move on now to the third of the outcome delivery reports, and that is, excuse me, a report by the Chief Officer for Partnership Services, who is not the Chief Officer for Partnership Services. Ms. McSween.
Thank you, Leader. And this report is the previous minute of the Social Work Social Care Board. The report was debated there, and there was some discussion on the issues raised. The report summarises the risk. Essentially, the greatest risk we're encountering is recruitment, and the integrated corporate management team and the IGB, given the delegated services, have oversight of the actions taken to mitigate that risk. I think the bulk of the report in section 7 should give you a good feel for the successes that we've managed to achieve in the department despite the challenges, the transition of residents and staff, and the regulatory view of our service continues to be that we've got good high quality services, with good and very good being dominant. There's also, in the next period, I'll be able to share with you the most recent inspection outcomes, which are equally positive. So that's good, especially in terms of the staff groups that are working hard to sustain services when there's recruitment issues, but also for us to recruit in. We're performing well, and we just need more of the service. I think the IGB structural deficit, as the Chief Exec mentioned in his summary, is on risk registers across the country, and we'll look with interest at the settlements as they're coming to see if there can be any mitigating action in terms of our local situation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from members? There are no lights and no hands up. In which case, do we agree do we agree to note the reports, all three? Agreed. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to item 11, and this report is for noting and provides a progress update for the Performance Transformation Programme and details progress with stage 2 of the business case, which continues to set out the framework of the project and work undertaken by the project team. Norma Skinner will answer members' questions. Norma.
Thank you, Chair. Don't have an awful lot to add to the report, just some of the key updates. Project team are working on standardising performance reporting, and we've got that as an appendix to the report. So we're looking at a specific template that will be an annualised report with standardised KPIs. We're also looking at tweaking all the business plans. So what we've done is at the half year point, we've updated 3 of the business plans for HR and performance, business plan for strategic finance, and the business plan for municipal services, and they're available on the website. The rest of the business plans will work with the services, and hopefully they will be ready for this come April next year. On the other side, we're continuing work analysing work processes using electronic forms to see if we can streamline processes to increase efficiency. I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent, thank you very much. Are there any questions on this report? No, in which case, do members agree to note it? Yes, thank you very much. Move on to item 12. And this report is for noting and provides progress update on the digital transformation project. In February 2025, 3 transformation projects were proposed to the Comhairle: digital innovation, driving performance and future-proofing, work on the Single Island Authority, and these were all approved. The project lead formed a focus group comprising officers with the relevant skills and interest in the project. As an initial fact-finding process, the group surveyed all departments in order to ascertain in general what they thought were areas where the Comhairle's digital systems were good and where they could be improved. Callum Mackenzie. Oh, sorry, I have Tim. Tim to speak to the report and answer members' questions. Tim.
Thank you, Leader. You've summarised where we are with the project. The key points I'd just like to draw to members' attention is we're now at the stage where we've launched the data maturity assessment questionnaire, and I hope you've all had an email about that. The purpose of that questionnaire is to try and cast the net as wide as possible across all staff and members to get people's views on their understanding of the way in which council uses data and should be using data. I urge you, please, if you can, to take some time to try and answer that questionnaire. The deadline is Friday. We may extend it, but I think if you can, I would really urge you to do that. The larger the number of responses we have, the better informed we'll be when we come to the action plan following the questionnaire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members? No, in which case I'll just echo Mr. Langley's words. I think it'll be really useful as members that we complete this. I think the staff are involved and they'll be taking part, but it'll be useful to have the members' views on this. So if you could complete the data maturity questionnaire, that would be much appreciated. Okay, and we agree to note the report. So we'll move on then to item 13. And this report provides an update on the current position of the Comhairle's budget strategy for 2026-27. The budget included the use of £2 million of reserves, which reduced the amount of potential reserves available to support future budget processes to £1.5 million. In addition to the minimum balances of £3.5 million held to mitigate against risks and unforeseen expenditure, the IGB's financial performance and the ability to realise planned savings. Mr. Bird and Mr. Gomez will answer members' questions. Mr. Bird, if you go first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to present very briefly some key points, and largely in the executive summary. You've summarised the budget which we set for this financial year, looking ahead to the next financial year and looking at the shortfall as predicted by the medium-term financial plan, which the Chamber approved earlier this year. Our options are limited, I would say, but are not. But we have options, and these are set out in 2.5. But these options include, and this is the detail in paragraph 2.3, a review of balances. Obviously, we try to maximise the availability of funds to mitigate any potential service reductions, and Mr. Gomez will speak about these later. That they're set out later in the report. So we're looking at uncommitted balances as well as reviewing earmarked balances to release any of these which remain uncommitted or aren't any longer required. And around 0.8 million of these have been identified to support budgets in future years. That's not necessarily next year. That's available for future years. Looking ahead to next year, inflationary figures we estimate on the basis of the evidence, but the Scottish Government budget is very late. The UK Government budget was delivered a couple of hours ago. and everyone is still looking through the details of that. There's an extra announcement of funding for Scotland over 3 years, but it's always the detail of these announcements that matters. But the key line for us is the Scottish Government will not announce its budget until 13th January, and the settlement figures come about a week after that. We will, I understand, receive some provisional settlement figures. There's a lot of provisional figures around at the moment, including in this report, but we'll receive an indication of what the settlement might be before the end of this year. But nothing matters. Nothing matters until the final announcement, and that won't be until week 3 of January. So we have put together, with your agreement at the September series of meetings, a provisional budget. Provisional outline budget was put to Budget and Strategy Board, and that's based on several significant assumptions that's set out in 2.5. I won't read them out. I won't read them out to you, but of course, because these are the assumptions on which the budget is being built, if any of them change, and it's your decision as to which of them change and to which degree, but if they change, then a compensatory sum must be identified from somewhere else, probably another element of those lines, or some of them, so that we can balance our budget. Paragraph 2.6 notes that there is a lot of one-off funding, and very helpful it is. We have Crown Estate funding, we all know. We have Ireland's cost of living funding that provided about £1 million last year. These funds are extremely important to our financial well-being. We generally plough them straight back into our revenue budgets, but they're not finite. They're subject to change. They can be taken away just as they've been given. They can also be increased, which is of course something we would like and are urging. But they can't be depended upon, and that is where the remarks in the conclusion of this report necessarily take us, and that's to say, efficiency savings. There are precious few of these left. We are now making, if cuts are to come from services, if our budget is to be balanced out of services, we would be looking at service reductions. And the first place you have to look, of course, is the non-statutory services. We hope, of course, that will not be necessary to any extreme degree. But there are Mr. Gomez's words, these are his words, not mine, in that particular paragraph in 10.1, every effort has been made to reduce services to a level within the realms of identifying 5 and 10% efficiency savings, but these are close to being exhausted. Members have seen these projections, you know that to be a fact. So other methods of service delivery or reduction must be considered, and fixed term funding is supportive, but we can't really look at that as a core part of budget planning. But everything, I think everything that can be estimated and realised, getting back to the earmarked balances, is being done at the moment, and the Budget and Strategy Board unanimously put forward these recommendations to this committee per 2.5. And you're recommended to note the update and approve the use of balances as set out in 10.2, the use of the uncommitted earmarked reserves, and to support the Budget and Strategy Board's support for a provisional budget as set out on the basis of the elements at paragraph 2.5. Mr. Gomez will speak to the financial details much better than I, but these are the overriding strategic considerations as far as we can identify them just now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gomez.
Thanks, Chair. I think the Chief Executive has covered a lot of the points that I would have made, and but just to touch a bit more on maybe the finances. So, as stated with regards to the review of balances, thanks to favourable interest rates and the cash balances that we hold, has left us in the positive position as at the end of the 24-25 accounts, where we had anticipated to only have held around 1.5 million in balances, but we do now hold about 3.3. So we're anticipating using another 2 million or up to 2 million of these balances again for the 26-27 budget. The review of the earmarked reserves, as you'll see in the appendix, was there. It is intended that we lean upon these should we need to use them. So although these are identified for use, we will still be looking at efficiency savings, and as mentioned, you know, these options are becoming limited. So we do need to have a look at perhaps non-statutory services, as we've discussed at Budget and Strategy Board, and certainly how we can best use the funds that we have for statutory services. Section 8 covers some of the budget pressures. So we do increase things like insurance to rise, a report later on in private around insurance services, bus contracts, etc. We will not know what the end result of these is until later in the year. Section 9, we've just got a bit on there about additional funding that's coming through, and while these are very much welcome, we need to determine the best use of these funds going forward. There's mention of the EPR money there in 9.1. This must only be used for in relation to chargeable disposal costs. So it's how we best use these within the waste service. But again, just to reiterate, it's a challenging time. Efficiency savings are becoming harder and harder to find. We need to look at a better use of the funding and the models of delivery, and that's what we intend to do over the next while. The budget will come in very late in middle of January, and we will put something together as quickly as possible once we get that information in, so that we know where we are and whether or not it's a positive position that we're in. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members? Yes, Rick.
Thank you, Chairman. The report at 7.1 says that the Scottish Government have proposed for the next financial year settlement that there would be a multi-year settlement. That's a proposal. Do we have any confirmation that that will be the case?
I'll bring the Chief Executive in, but my understanding is no.
I'm not aware of any beyond that statement, Chair, but I know Mr. Gomez had a meeting of Directors of Finance recently, which might shed more light on it.
Mr. Gomez?
Unfortunately, I missed the most recent meeting of Directors of Finance, just due to committees this week, but there's been some discussion around it. There's certainly been reports circling within the forum around the aspiration for this to come. It has been mentioned, but it's been mentioned before and not materialised. So focus is on the 26-27 budget. There's been a hint that this might include multi-year settlements, but we await what is actually announced, and I wouldn't pin our hopes on it.
Just as you said, Mr. Gomez, it's been mentioned before in previous years and it's never materialised. This would go a long way to assisting us in our planning for future budgets. I'm sure to your own offices you're putting pressure on on COSLA and through the Scottish Government. In terms of the EPR funding, is there any prospect of any further flexibility on that? I note that Directors of Finance have been questioning the methodology being used around that.
Bring Sandy in on that one again.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly nothing on flexibility. I mean, the legal purpose of the funding is for, as it's stated there, for chargeable disposal costs, so we can only use this for waste services. How we use this within the waste services is another mechanism, but we need to have a bit of a further delve into this. With regards to the methodology, yes, there's a lot of discussions around the methodology about how they've come to the figures that they've come to councils. We do benefit largely from this funding, whereas a lot of other councils do not. So clearly other councils have more of a reason to challenge the methodology. So we need to be very careful about how we use this funding going forward, as it is subject to change. If we were to use it for other means, there are penalty clauses in place where they would claw back the funding. So we need to be careful on how we best use this going forward, but also we need to be cautious about the sustainability of the levels of the funding. 3.5 million last year for this current financial year, 3.6 million for next financial year. They sound great. Let's hope it's sustained at these levels, but there's a lot of discussion going on about EPR funds.
So to the chair, if if we use it smartly, it could really benefit us in terms of revenue flows.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good position to be in. I think other local authorities would be and are rather because of where we are. So yeah, we need to make sure we use this funding wisely.
Thank you.
And just on your first point about the multi-year settlement is something that we raise regularly at COSLA. I think it was made in discussion with the First Minister at the conference recently. It was one of the questions I was put to him. He wasn't committal, but it is out there. Are there any other questions? I can't see any lights on, in which case there's recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 14. This report provides an update on the progress of the 2023 to 28 capital programme as at the 30th September 2025. At the meeting on the 8th of February 2023, the Cornwall agreed a capital programme of £25 million, and since the initial programme was set, a further £44.9 million has been awarded to the Cornwall by the Scottish Government and other funders towards several different projects, as detailed at paragraph 2.1 of the report. Again, Sandy will speak to the report and answer members' questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so at the end of Q2, just short of £5 million spend. Asset investment team is looking very closely at ways to ramp up spend before the end of the year. As part of the report, we're looking for approval to use some of the unallocated capital for insurance works in relation to some risk improvement actions requested by the insurers. These are for Stirling Primary and the abattoir. Detail of the spend is in the appendix. I don't have details of specific projects, but I'll answer any questions as best I can.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions on this report? No lights and no hands, in which case there are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1 of the report, and we agree. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item 15, and this report details the Collier's forecast revenue outturn for 2025-26. A summary of the financial performance at the end of September 2025 is attached at Appendix 1 to the report, which shows a projected net overspend of £859,000. After adjusting for the £1.7 million relating to health and social care, which will be funded from the Integrated Joint Board reserves, the net position for the Cornwall is a projected underspend of £831,000. This underspend partially relates to education and children's services, including children's mainland placements and treasury management, which has been partially offset by a budget deficit of £353,000 within municipal services. All departments are currently projected to be within carry-forward tolerances at the end of the year, and an exception report on budgetary performance is included at Appendix 3. And again, Mr. Gomez will speak to the report and answer members' questions.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, as you mentioned, projected overspend shown, but after adjusting for the IJB reserves, it does show an underspend. This is largely a similar position to where we were at the end of Q1, with the difference being the overspend projected in municipal services, but this partly offset by some favourable variances within interest receivable and the loans charges. Again, sustained high interest rates are benefiting us while we hold cash balances, and this is providing us with a reasonable rate of return, which we continue to get as long as rates stay high. 2.3 notes that the teachers' pay award was under consultation, so obviously this has now been agreed. We await the funding mechanism for this. We are building into the projections that we assume this will be fully funded. 2.5 just mentioned, similar to the budget statutory report, the review of the earmark reserve. The main details of the variances or departmental variances are in Appendix 3. I'm happy to take any questions on it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Members, any questions? No. Mr. Finnegan?
Cheers, Chair. Just for Sandy, it's just in case that it isn't fully funded, is there any contingencies that can be put aside to kind of offset, just in case the government don't fully fund that pay rise?
So for the teachers' pay rise, yeah.
Yeah.
Sandy?
No, there isn't, is the answer.
I thought you were going to say that.
I think the fact that there's departmental underspends at the moment, look favourable for us, but as we discussed before and mentioned many times, mainland placements form a large part of that, and that can change at the click of a finger. So.
Okay, right, thanks.
Thanks. I think in our discussions and negotiations through COSLA, it was one of the clear asks that it would be funded before we agreed to any of this. So I said when we were discussing and negotiating through COSLA, one of the clear asks was that it would be funded before we agreed to it. So I think we're as safe as we can be with that one. He says. Okay, there are no other lights on or hands up. So do members agree to to the recommendations at 3.1? Agreed, thank you. Item 16, excuse me. This report is for noting and provides a summary report of the Treasury management activity during the first 6 months of 2025-26. The report provides the half-yearly update of the Treasury management activity and potential indicators as required by the 2021 edition of Treasury Management in the Public Services Code of Practice, the Treasury Management Strategy for 25-26, which was approved by the Comhairle on the 5th of February 2025, included the recommended prudential indicator estimates for the year. These indicators have been updated to reflect the changes to date and are shown in paragraph 10. And again, Sandy is here to answer questions. Sandy.
Thanks, Chair. Bit of a broken record, just to state that our balances there at 7.1, our investment balances were standing at just short of 40 million, hence the favourable rates and interest that we've been achieving, as I mentioned in the previous report. Section 8, no long-term borrowing to the half-year period, but happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions? Convener.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just a question for Sandy. How much of our loans will be coming to an end in the next 4 or 5 years? Because I know there was a huge amount of borrowing, the late 70s, early 80s, some of them were at 30, 35, 40 year. So is there many of the loans coming to an end, maturing in the next, between now and 2030, Sandy?
I don't have the exact figures to hand, but I can get them for you. They mature over a very sporadic period. It's a little bit at every time. We're normally paying back a form of loan or one of the loans almost annually. We're making these debt repayments, but where and when they actually mature, I can get that information. I don't have it to hand, but I can get that for you.
To be quite honest, Sandy, just leave it till we get the next full report about the Public Works Loan Board. Yeah, just okay. Don't go out of your way. You've got enough on your plate. Just leave it till we get an updated report on where the loan, how much we have in loans and when they're maturing, all that. Okay,
that's fine. I'll have that for you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Convener. Thanks, Sandy. Don't see any other lights. In which case, do we agree to the recommendations of 3.1? Agreed. Thank you. Item 17. This report recommends that a number of irrecoverable debts totalling £87,342.14 in respect of council tax, non-domestic rates, sundry debts and housing benefit overpayments be written off. Every effort has been made to recover the debts due, and write-off recommendations are made only when all recovery routes have been exhausted. I'll pass over to Sandy again for this one. Sandy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so we're just required to put these in front of you if they're over £2,000. As mentioned at the last series, we did not write off as much debt last year following the cyber attack. So there is an element of us playing catch up, but that's not to say that all avenues have been exhausted. A large amount of these debts there in front of you for approval today are in relation to executives where there's no estate. So every effort's been made, but we were not able to pursue the debt any further.
Okay, thank you very much. There are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Agreed. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 18. This report is for noting and presents the Corporate Strategy Annual Report 2025, which outlines progress and developments under the Corporate Strategy 2022 to 2027. Each priority supported by 5 strategic outcomes. Business plan actions are aligned to these outcomes and measured through a suite of key performance indicators that reflect the outcomes. The Corporate Strategy KPI Progress Report 2019-20 to 2023-24 is available on the Comhairle's website, and the 24-25 data for most indicators is not available yet due to a lag in the publication of official statistics. The Corporate Strategy Annual Report 25 in the appendix to the report provides an overview of selected policies, strategies, plans and KPIs that support delivery of the strategy. It also summarises strategic risk, responsible officers monitor these risks via the risk management module in Interplan and the College Performance Management System. Fiona Nape is available to speak to the report and answer members' questions. Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. And like you say, there's a change in the annual report this year. This one takes a new report due to the lag in the official KPI data and is more focused on the key policies and plans. It also includes a looking ahead section for forward planning. And the report was developed with input from responsible officers and informed by Interplan, the Strategic Risk Register, the Policy Register and committee reports. The report reflects best value principles through continuous improvement, effective governance and transparent reporting and is presented for noting. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fiona. Are there any questions or comments from members on this report? I don't see any lights or hands, in which case do members agree to note the report? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 19 on policy. This report seeks approval of the revised draft policy and strategy aligned to the WorkWell framework, which have been updated following a period of consultation. The reviewed policies appended to the report reflect significant updates aimed at improving employee well-being, safety and organisational culture. Where possible, consultation responses, suggestions and additional narrative have been incorporated into the draft policies and presented for approval. The key updates are summarised in the report, and we have Anne Blythe and Jean MacDonald to answer members' questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just as you said, yes, the purpose of the report is to seek approval of the revised draft policies and strategy aligned to the WorkWell framework, which have been updated following a period of consultation. The policies and strategy listed in the report were reviewed in consultation with committees, human resources, health and safety and organisational development teams between the 22nd of April 2025 and 5th of May 2025, and the updated draft policies reflect the feedback received. The reviewed policies are appended to this report reflect significant updates aimed at improving employee wellbeing, safety and organisational culture. And wherever possible, consultation responses, suggestions and additional narrative have been incorporated into the draft policies presented for approval. And the key updates are summarised in the main body of the report, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions or comments on this? I think it's been quite a number of forums and it's useful to have that buffer before it comes to us in the chamber. I don't see any lights or hands, so there are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1. Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 20, policy updates. This report details updates on the following policies: the acceptable use of social media, employee contact with the media, information security, mobile and landline communications, and security policy for laptops and portable devices, which are all appended to the report. The changes have been made in consultation with IT and communications to ensure they meet service requirements, and Norma Skinner will answer members' questions on the report. Norma.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a lot to add to that. Really, just to say the policies required significant review, and you'll see that 5 were changed into 4. They've been discussed at the JCC LNC, the corporate management team, and at the employee forum, and comments were taken into account through these forums and amendments made to the reports, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? If not, there are oh, sorry, Councillor Murray.
Thanks very much, Leader. Not so much a question, but I think I wish I'd come in the last report, just in both these numbers 20 and 21 there, to acknowledge the huge amount of work done on updating these policies. And I think the whole process, having been at both the JCC and the LNC, it was good to see how well received they were, how the partnership working over the amendments and the changes, and it just reflect, I think, a good working atmosphere, and something that I think everyone should be commended on in both these areas.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. And yeah, I was going to make similar comments after the next report, but yeah, and I think I still will. But yeah, absolutely right. If there are no further questions, there are recommendations for approval. Paragraph 3.1, agreed. Thank you very much. Item 21 is the sickness absence policy. And this report seeks approval of the revised sickness absence policy, which has been reviewed and updated in line with the current best practice. Work will continue to be undertaken to provide ongoing manager training, refine the procedural aspects relating to the implementation of the policy, and review associated guidance and policies, including the phased return to work policy and the medical redeployment policy. And Carmen MacDonald will answer members' questions. Carmen.
Thank you, Chair. Again, consultation started late in 2024 through the employee survey and continued through 2025 with the JCC and the Employee Forum. All comments and feedback has been incorporated into the updated policy. There's been an increased focus on early intervention and support for employees through the process. This policy obviously just provides a framework for the management of sickness absence and will be supported with the continuing reviews of related policies such as the phased return to work and medical redeployment policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on this one? If not, there are recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 22. This report seeks approval of the revised relocation expenses policy appended to the report. And again, Carmen is available to speak to members on this report.
Thank you, Chair. Again, another policy update. This one hasn't been reviewed for a number of years. A clearly defined maximum has never been defined within the policy, so we've added that to the policy. This is in line with tax thresholds and comparable to the offerings of other organisations such as Highland and the NHS. We've updated, again, just the terminology and some of the values across the expense elements, just in line with current costs. And happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members or comments? There are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Agreed. Thank you. And just to echo Councillor Murray's comments, I think the work that's gone into that policy section and the work with our employees is really, really important, and an awful lot of time and effort has gone into making sure we're getting these things right. For this, obviously, the first one was work well framework, so it's about the well-being of our staff. So really, really important that we get this right. Okay, moving on to consultations. So item 23, this report seeks homologation of the response to UK government consultation closing on the 20th November on the continuation of the Warm Home Discount Scheme. Linda Cunningham is available to answer members' questions, I believe. Yes, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Thank you, Chair. Seeking homologation of a response to the consultation which had to be submitted by the 20th of November, please. Just another small update. The consultation responses will be shared with the Scottish Government where they relate to the delivery of the scheme in Scotland, and decisions on how the scheme will operate in Scotland will be made by the Scottish Government within the funding available to Scotland. And also to emphasise that our response seek an equivalent of island proofing of the Scotland element of the scheme. And there's also a typo, apologies for the typo on page 3, it should be years 25 to 26. Happy to take any questions, Chair, thanks.
Thank you, Linda. I think with all that detail we can excuse one typo. I think that's not a problem. I don't see any lights on in the chamber or hands up online. So in that case, there are recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Linda. Now, related matters, item 24. This report concerns, concerns the public body's climate change duties compliance reporting. The completed compliance reporting template is appended to the report and seeks to provide an overview of the Corria's progress on climate change. The return covers governance, emissions and projects, climate change adaptation, procurement and wider influence across the local authority area. And we have Anna Hume to speak to members, to speak to the report and answer members' questions. Anna.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is our annual report on how we're meeting our statutory duties, and it shows we had a small reduction in our carbon footprint for the second year in a row, as well as outlining other arrangements we have in place, including for governance and adaptation, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions or comments on this report? No. In that case, there are recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1. Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 25. This report is for noting and provides an update on progress achieved in the delivery of the Comhairle's Climate Change Strategy 2022 to 2027. The strategy was approved by the Comhairle in September 22 following public consultation. The Climate Change Strategy Progress Report 2025 appended to the report provides an update on progress achieved to date against each of the actions in the strategy. The latest available data for performance indicators is also provided in the report. And again, Anna Hume is available to speak to the report and answer members' questions. Anna.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the annual progress report shows progress against all our strategic priority areas with a number of further actions achieved over the last year. There are several additional actions which have been identified internally and added to the progress report templates to allow progress to be tracked going forwards.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions on this report? No. In that case, do members agree to note the report? Yes, thank you very much. Item 26, performance review. The report's outstanding. There are no reports outstanding from this committee. So before we go into private, I just want to say thank you to all the officers that produced the reports. There weren't many questions today, but I think that's a credit to the detail that's in the reports and the presentation that we've been given. So thank you very much for all of your work on that. So we're now going to go into private, following 6 items taken in private. So once we're good to go, we will make a start.